Hello everyone, this is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Rebel, and welcome to the I Love Jeet Kune broadcast number 40. Is this number 45 or 46? I think one set of notes says 45, so I'll go with that. So as you guys are logging in, if you'd be kind enough to say where you're logging in from and hit the like button, and feel free to continue to hit the like button as we go through the broadcast. I gotta tell you that. Okay, so a lot of times I like to tell you the origin story behind the particular episode that we're doing of the broadcast, right? So there's a popular guy on the YouTube, a Jeet Kune guy, who recently posted a video giving his take on the what they call the original Jeet Kune versus the Jeet Kune controversy, which is a thing that, as we've talked about before, which is why I titled today's broadcast "Original Jeet Kune versus Jeet Kune Concepts Revisited," because it's something that has been in some instances, it's something that has been spoken about ad nauseum. And we have spoken about it here on the broadcast ourselves. So I called it Revisited. But he posted his video, and to his credit, he says that he spent a brief period of time with two Jeet Kune Concepts instructors, two people under Dan and Asano, but that his main instructor was Ted Wong. So to quote some of what he said that, referring to the Jeet Kune Concepts people, he said that one big philosophy is that they like to flow from one art to another art, that they believe you should be trained in different types of martial arts so you have more tools that you can use. Right? Now, I'll state it again. Granted, he says that he spent a brief amount of time with what he calls Jeet Kune Concepts instructors, and so he's no authority on Jeet Kune Concepts, and it shows. Here's why, right? So then he does a little demonstration of the idea of flowing from one art to another, right? So that you enter with like a Savate kick, and then you can go to Wing Chun, and then you can go to Muay Thai, and then you can go to boxing, and then you can go to a Pencak Silat sweep, and then you can finish up with a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu lock or something, right? So this is how he expresses it. He says the idea is that you have an apple, and you have an orange, and you have a banana, and then you kind of put a stick through them. So you skewer them, or you like a kebab, I guess, right? And then he says, depending on the situation, you pull from this art or from that art. Then he says, whereas original Jeet Kune is more like a blender, in that you put the fruits in, you blend them together, and then you end up with like a Jeet Kune smoothie, right? Those are my words, right? So he ended up at the right place when he refers to what my senior Rick Fay calls the blended seamlessness of Jeet Kune. So he ended up at the right place, but he got there essentially on the right train. He just happened to get there at the wrong time, right? Let's go back to what Bruce Lee was doing and where he was headed, right? Truth and ultimate reality in combat training, right? But did Bruce Lee have the tremendous access to a variety of arts that we have today? Not really, but what he could get to, he definitely took advantage of. So just recently, I saw somebody posted this. I can't verify, but somebody posted that Bruce Lee got his black belt in judo from Hayward Nishioka. Now I know that Bruce Lee and Nishioka spent time together in Los Angeles, but I had never heard of him training to the point in judo of getting a black belt or whatever. But there is a picture of him in Seattle, I think it is, in with a belt, a black belt around his waist. But anyhow, and then there's a time that he spent however much time or however little time it was with judo Jean LaBelle, also in Los Angeles, right? The rest of it was Bruce Lee informing himself, I guess, from books and from 8mm film and stuff like that. But can we make it settled debate that Bruce Lee was headed in the direction of what today we would call cross training, right? So you guys go ahead and comment on that idea of whether or not we could call Bruce Lee and Dan Inosanto, by the way, the original martial art cross trainers, right? In any case, why cross train? There is the Bruce Lee saying something about my technique is a result of your technique, right? So in order for my technique to be affected by your technique, I might have to be familiar with your technique. So, for example, I recently, on the Jeet Kune Dialogues, recently talked with Eric Paulson, right, the combat submission wrestler. So if Eric Paulson shoots in and takes me down, and I have absolutely zero familiarity with ground fighting, am I going to give a good account of myself down there on the floor, right? I don't think so. I would be gravely mistaken to think that I could give good account of myself, unless I have trained in things to counter his approach, right? So then that would still mean that I had to be familiar with it. Let me take another go at this, right? Let's talk about it this way, because this idea that Jeet Kune Do concepts people, and I'm just using that term because that's the term that they use. I'm just this idea that Jeet Kune Do concepts people, what they do is they train a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of that and a little bit of that, right? And then like he said, they all kind of keep it separate, right? And so you can become confused because you have too many tools. You have too many answers against the guy's punch when he tries to punch you, because you've cross-trained in a number of different things, right? They don't get it. And here's why I think some of them might be confused. So I thought I'd approach this a little bit differently, right? Because when I say original Jeet Kune Do and Jeet Kune Do concepts, I'm just using the language that other people use. That's not even my terms, right? But when original Jeet Kune Do people talk about, you'll hear them talk about the principles involved in Jeet Kune Do. So I looked up the dictionary definition of principle, and this is what I found. A fundamental truth or proposition that serves as the foundation for a system of belief or behavior or for a chain of reasoning. A fundamental truth or proposition that serves as the foundation for a system of belief or behavior or for a chain of reasoning. I'm pretty sure that those all apply to Jeet Kune Do. So then I looked up synonyms for the word, dictionary definition synonyms for the word principle, and here's what I found. Truth, proposition, concept, idea, theory, assumption, fundamental, essential, ground rule. Right? Truth, proposition, concept, idea, theory, assumption, fundamental, essential, ground rule. So, principle and concept in some cases are synonymous terms. So when you look at the concept, when you look at the definition of concept, here's what you find. A concept is an abstract idea or a general notion. Well, that didn't serve what I was looking for. So I thought, now I'm screwed, because this definition of concept does not fit with what I was looking for, right? So, because when you talk about an abstract idea or a general notion, that sounds kind of ethereal, or ephemeral, right? And so it's like Brian Tracy used to call it a wandering generality instead of a meaningful specific. And what I was looking for was the meaningful specific. So then I noticed something, because it was a pretty long definition. And it says, an idea or invention to help sell or publicize a commodity, right? That's a concept. An idea or invention to help sell or publicize a commodity, as in a new concept in corporate hospitality. Or when they talk about concept cars, right? It's because it's a new idea. It's an idea or an invention to help or publicize a commodity. And I thought for a second, maybe somebody somewhere along the line saw this definition of concept that had to do with publicizing or selling, and that's where they got the idea that Dan Inosanto created Jeet Kune concepts in order to make money off of his association with Bruce Lee, in order to publicize himself and sell his version of Jeet Kune, right? I wonder. But you keep reading, and there just happens to be, in the dictionary definition of concept, in the category known as philosophy, it says an idea or mental picture of a group or class of objects formed by combining all their aspects. I'll read it again. An idea or mental picture of a group or class of objects formed by combining all their aspects. It's the combining all their aspects that I find interesting. And also what I find interesting is that concept has a different definition in the dictionary when it is applied to philosophy. Not its general definition, but its specific philosophical definition, which I think is kind of interesting because, and I'll show it to you again, as you guys know, it's always a favorite, right, with the group, the art and philosophy of Bruce Lee, right? So I think that we could have a debate on that, right? The philosophical underpinnings of Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune. Anyhow, but to bring us back to the idea of practicality, so we're talking about if Eric Paulson shoots in and takes me down, I'm lost if I don't have a fundamental understanding of how to defend against ground fighting. And isn't learning how to fight with something one of the best ways to learn how to defend against it, right? You guys can go ahead and comment on that. Is learning how to fight with something one of the best ways to learn how to defend against it? So if I'm going to focus on boxing, fencing, and Wing Chun, I still need to have familiarity with grappling in order to use my boxing, fencing, and Wing Chun against grappling, don't I? So I think that the video guy that I'm talking about, right? The video guy I'm talking about, he could have clarified things for himself if he'd have just, you guys might get a kick out of this, right? If he'd have just taken a look in here, Junfan Jeet Kune Do, the textbook, page 152. Now, let me try to get this up the right way on screen here. So you see the four separate circles, right? You guys might not be able to see what it says in there, but it's kicking, punching, trapping, grappling, right? And then the second diagram is the four circles, but they're all they meet each other. So punching meets kicking meets trapping meets grappling, right? Now that is a pretty good indication. Now this is where you'll get a kick out of it. I couldn't find a better diagram than this one that I tried to do, right? So you see where it says kicking, punching, trapping, grappling. The point where those four all interlock, intercept, inter something, where they all have a section. That shaded section, that's Jeet Kune Do, or at least the empty hand representation of Jeet Kune Do, right? But I couldn't find a better a better depiction of it, right? Anyhow, so when you get this, you realize that it is not this idea of flowing from one art to another art to the third art or what have you. It's being proficient in skills that blend together. And people don't seem to understand that important aspect of Jeet Kune Do concept, right? There's a deep pool of information or a deep pool of material, and you dive in and you swim around. But when you get out of the pool, not all of the water sticks to you, and then if you stay in the sun, some parts of your body will dry before others. Or if you use a towel, right, you might dry off certain parts of your body before you dry off others. And that's I couldn't come up with a better analogy, right, for diving deep into the Jeet Kune Do concept approach. But anyhow, towards the end of the video, right, to their credit, they do acknowledge something about the Jeet Kune Do concepts group, which is that their focus on weaponry is pretty sensible. It's pretty smart to have a development on weaponry, right? So I found that, well, I mean, they are being credible, right? But if at the end of your 10-minute video you're gonna give kudos to the Jeet Kune Do concepts group, then it's kind of like, well, open your mind earlier on and recognize why there's an emphasis on cross training in the empty hands as well, right? I would be the first to admit that there might have been some mistakes made in the early days of the Jeet Kune Do concepts movement, right? As in the naming of the thing, or it might not have been very well explained what was meant by Jeet Kune Do concepts, and so it appeared to be a rejection of what Bruce Lee had done in favor of, you know, all these different martial arts and what have you, right? But I'll make one last point, and we'll finish this up about again, so-called Jeet Kune Do concepts, right? You take somebody like these are all my JKD seniors. You take somebody like Chris Kent, Cass Magda, Rick Fay, Burton Richardson, Greg Nelson, or the aforementioned Eric Paulson, right? And you bring them into your town for a 10-hour weekend seminar, right? And ask them to teach 10 hours over the weekend of kickboxing. They could all do it. If you ask them to teach 10 hours of, forget kickboxing, teach 10 hours of close quarter, let's call it trap into grappling, right? They could all do it. And then if you ask them to teach 10 hours of weaponry, they could all do it. But I don't know how many of the, again, so-called original Jeet Kune Do people could pull that off. So if they can, right, if there are many of the so-called original Jeet Kune Do people who can pull that off, then what's the difference between the two? What's the difference between the original Jeet Kune Do and the Jeet Kune Do concepts? There is no difference, and that's kind of my entire point, right? So I just spent 16 minutes saying there is no difference, and nobody even asked me the question. Anyhow, that's it for today, right? So guys, feel free to share, like, comment, ask questions. I'll go through everything again and review after posting. Sign up for notifications on when we go live on Facebook and on the YouTube channels for both the I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast and for the Jeet Kune Do dialogues. Quick Skill Series Volume 1 still available at I Love Jeet Kune Do. Coming up on Friday the 28th, this Friday the 28th, Jeet Kune Do dialogues number something with Jeff Westfall of Rising Phoenix Martial Arts, 3 p.m. on Friday. Tune in and you'll hear how Jeff and I got introduced at the same time to one of the loves of our lives, right? What did Karen Waters says on you? Yeah, so Karen, if you go on the YouTube, you can find the old episodes, right? Right now we're not broadcasting live on the YouTube, it's just live on Facebook. But if you go on the YouTube and you look up the Jeet Kune Do dialogues or the I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast, you can find all of the stuff there, right? What else am I supposed to tell you? Freddie Harrison, they're still on video. The audio stuff is not yet up anywhere, but they will be soon. I'll get them on Stitcher or Podbean, I think was what you had told me about, right? So I think that's it. Everybody. So we'll see you on Friday, 3 p.m. for Jeet Kune Do Dialogues, and next Wednesday, same time, for another issue of the I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast. You guys enjoy the rest of your day. Take care. Oh, the shirt. There we go. Right? I like to use this one anytime that we're talking about, oh, Bruce didn't do that Kali stuff. Let me show it to you again. I don't know about that. I think maybe he did. At least a little bit of double stick. All right, take care, guys. Throw me a lifeline, save me inside.